I have been looking forward to this conversation with Stormy with a childlike curiosity.
Welcome to Interspecies Evolution. The purpose of this podcast is to highlight human consciousness and how our self-awareness can lead to our honoring animals as conscious beings as well. We have gathered more than 36 people with unique experiences and education, inviting them to share their journeys and how their relationships with animals have changed along the way. If you are seeking inspiration on your own journey of awakening, or simply want to improve your relationships with animals, we invite you to join us because it is time for Interspecies Evolution. Here's your host, Jenny Jablonski.
I am joined today by Stormy May. In full disclosure, in this first season, I am welcoming more than 25 amazing men and women. But for reasons which will be obvious to everyone, I have been looking forward to this conversation with Stormy with a childlike curiosity, as her journey, passion, and purpose in life closely mirror the intentions of this podcast. Stormy's earlier career included horse training, competition, and work as a chief horse management judge and national examiner with the United States Pony Club. In 2006, she followed her dream to more deeply study the horse-human bond, which resulted in the highly acclaimed documentary, The Path of the Horse, which was released more than a decade ago. This inspirational documentary explores the future of horse-human relationships and ultimately all human relationships. Now Stormy coaches people seeking to learn and grow from their relationships with horses and all life. She is a mindfulness and meditation teacher and a lifelong student of horses, humans, and our relationship with the natural world. Thank you, Stormy, for taking the time to share your life's work and passion with us today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be invited.
I am really excited because this podcast focuses on human consciousness and how a greater understanding of ourselves can lead us to a greater understanding of animal consciousness, specifically our partnerships with domesticated animals. Our audience has a particular interest in the founding principles of your work and what you are attempting to accomplish for humanity and the animals we all love. But believe it or not, there might be just a few people who aren't familiar with your work or with horses for that matter. And I'd like our audience to get to know you just a little bit before we start talking about your more recent projects. Can you please share in as much detail as you feel comfortable with your journey from horse trainer and competitor and how you were led to create the documentary, The Path of the Horse?
Yeah, it was the horses that led me to create it. I had been a very dutiful student from a lot of different trainers for years, but really it was a couple horses I had, a couple mares that were not getting with the program. They did not want to do what I wanted them to do. And at the time, the only alternatives were to get stronger, which means more hitting, more whipping, more kicking, more manipulation, or find something else, or send them to somebody else who would do that. And that just didn't seem right. And, there's all these myths about these beautiful partnerships that don't involve coercion and force. But nobody I knew who lived around me knew how to do that. It was always just get stronger. So I had been reading some books from some people that I thought knew a different way and watching some videos, but I was suspicious. It looked too good to be true. And most of the time, trainers will say they're kind and gentle, but then you go watch in real life and you see that that's really not the case. So I was willing to literally sell the farm and let go of my training business in order to find a better way. And I did find it. And it took a lot of studying, a lot of travel, and a lot of getting to know myself. It really was an intensely personal journey. The biggest key was in 2006 when I met Alexander Nevzorov. And when I met his horses in Russia, they were just different. They were very much just came right up to you and said, "Hi, who are you?" And it wasn't until then that I realized what a truly empowered horse was. You know, part of the requirements for working with him online were to stop riding for a year. So, luckily I had my fill of all that by then. So I thought, okay, a year. So I tried it with one horse, my main horse. I said, okay, I'm going to stop riding him for a year and see what happens. And during that year, my sensitivity started coming back. I started realizing how off all the other stuff was that I was doing with horses. So I just stopped riding more and more horses and realizing that the key was I really wanted a partnership. And all these horse trainers tell you that they're trying to teach you how to have a partnership, but it's not really a partnership unless you really honor the horse's no and allow the horse to have just as much of a voice as we do. Otherwise it's not a partnership, it's manipulation. So it was humbling, and I cannot be more grateful that I followed through and was able to let go of what I thought I wanted with horses to find what really felt good in my heart, what felt true to who I am as a human. And that is a true partnership that honors and respects horses as they are. And the more I walk down that path, the more I recognize that it's the easiest thing in the world, to if you really love horses, why wouldn't you want them to be themselves? All this stuff of, they need a job, they need to do this, they need to do that. No, they don't. They're perfect. They came out. In fact, they have what we're missing. They have that connection to nature. They have that ability to tune into the seasons and the time of day and everything that's happening that we humans really have lost our connection with. So that's, in a nutshell, why I made the Path of the Horse and how I came to see what a true partnership with a horse really looks like.
Before we move forward, having you talk about your book, I want to quote Dr. Natalie Hansen from the foreword of your book, The Path of the Horse. And Dr. Hansen writes, "Within community, both equine and human, we will find the validation, solidarity, and support to do what needs to be done and say what needs to be said, unlearning as much as we have learned about horses and relearning as much and more about horses, ourselves, and the lives we share." And that is the essence of this podcast. And I would like to give you an opportunity to talk about your book. And in particular, if you wouldn't mind, the first chapter of your book is titled Primum Non Nocere, or Nocere, depending on how you pronounce it. And that translates to a guiding principle that we are all very well aware of in bioethics, medicine. First, do no harm. So please share a little about your decision to make this the first chapter of your book.
I'm so glad you're bringing up the book because I'm in the middle of a major rewrite of it right now, and hopefully within the month there will be the newer expanded version. But that first chapter I wrote back in 2006 when I was starting with Alexander Nevzorov, and that was one of his principles: first, do no harm. And you can just take that one all the way back. What is harm? What does a horse need to not be harmed? And if you really study the science of the horse and their physiology, most of the stuff we're doing with them is harmful to them, even if it's not something like obviously hitting them or whipping them. Even the pressure of the saddle and the girth, the pressure of the halter on the head, all of that works by harming the horse. A bit doesn't work if it doesn't cause pain. And I can feel people's hackles getting raised already. We go, and a bit doesn't cause a horse harm unless you use it improperly. But what's it there for? Why would we need it if it weren't to cause pain? So it really takes a person ready to be radically honest with themselves to pick apart what we're doing with horses and look at it under the lens of, is this harming the horse or not? Is extended time in a stall harmful to them? Is living in a pasture without any friends harmful for them? Is not having access to forage 24/7 harmful to them? There's just so many things that we do because of tradition, because of convenience, because that's what our trainer tells us, that we think it's the best thing for them. I remember when I first got my horse, one of my first horses was a yearling warm blood. I bought her off of the breeding farm and put her in this little pen because that, I thought, well, she has more room than a racehorse has. But looking back, it's like, wow, that was horrible to take this, year and 9-month-old horse and put her in this tiny pen with another horse on the other side of the fence. And just imagine that I'm giving her a better life. I've learned and grown, but we just need new role models, really. We need people who really think like a horse. That's a cliche. Every trainer says, oh, yes, I think like a horse. But how many truly do? How many really understand that horses need a certain amount of movement and a certain amount of forage and a certain amount of friends and, a certain amount of autonomy, ability to decide what's okay and what's not okay for their bodies. So we need to educate ourselves and then be that person for the next generation. I try to be the person I wish I had met when I was 13 and starting horses. There's something about how we treat those who are vulnerable. And when we decide that there is no value if they can't do what we think they need to do, I think that really should serve as a wake-up call for us who have a chance to become more human, more humane, by recognizing that what we perceive as an animal, a helpless animal's value, can be so much more than what the trainers say and what even some of the vets say. Chiron, the wounded healer in mythology, was a horse with a bad knee. And through that metaphor, we can really go deep into what are we doing here together. And I think healing each other, and not only on the physical level, but on the mental, emotional, spiritual levels, are what we're being asked for, especially when we come across these challenging horses who don't fit in the box that we think that they should fit in.
I wanted to ask you about your program, Compassionate Communication with Horses, but I have to, again, in full disclosure, I was all over your website today, anticipating interviewing you and watching videos and watching interviews that you had done. And in your short, I think it's 4-minute introductory video to the course, you said something that struck me as quite parallel to my journey. And I would like to quote you. I hope I do it well. I realized that even with all the schooling I had, with all the life lessons I learned, the books I'd read, the retreats I'd gone to, I still hadn't found out how to live a life of peace, happiness, and compassion. I found I had memorized and copied a lot of things, But those things didn't lead me to a life of love. Those people that taught me weren't themselves peaceful or happy or particularly compassionate. And sadly, I have to share with you that that closely mirrors my experience on my journey. And when I was asked to share what I had learned on my human journey of overcoming trauma and relate it to animals, one of the first things I thought is, well, I'm not, a professional animal communicator. I need to go learn from people who say they're the best. And I went and traveled and sought out and spent thousands and thousands of dollars meeting these people. And they all said different things. And they all had different protocols. And they all had different perspectives and ideas about what communication was and wasn't with animals. And a lot of them were, as you said, very wounded themselves. And it was a very difficult experience. And not a week goes by that I don't get phone calls from people who have come from a coaching or a equine facilitated learning program or a colt gentling class or animal communication class that aren't themselves traumatized by the way people are relating to both the animals and to the people themselves. And this is something that I have really struggled with personally over the last 5 or 6 years about how to talk about this, how to communicate about this. And I really applaud you for doing it in a very ethical, very grounded, very positive way. You're trying to be an example. And I would like you to share with the audience about this course, Compassionate Communication with Horses.
Yeah, the saying, you teach what you most need to learn. That's how this course came about. I did find some certain teachers. These weren't necessarily horse trainers, and they weren't horse trainers, but they were people who really I looked up to. Like, they had communities, they knew how to get along, they had people who were their students who were really amazing human beings. And it's like, yes, this is what I'm looking for. And luckily, it all was very relatable to work with horses. But that's where I got into the mindfulness and the meditation and the know thyself, study yourself. That's where all the answers came together. So with these teachers that I found, there were certain exercises that they would have me and their students do that really help us cut through the mind chatter and get us straight into okay, this is presence. This is what's really happening right here, right now. And these are the stories that are passing through. And the stories are what caused the tragedy in our lives. What I did in coming up with compassionate communication with horses was put together the best of those direct ways to cut through the stories, cut through the past conditioning, cut through the traumas, and get to what is really real happening right here, right now. What is the essence of me? What is the essence of this horse in front of me? And how can I align to that's more real, that's happening right now, that is going to connect me with the peace and the harmony and the truth of what this life is about, what is really going on right now. And at first I didn't know if it's going to be something that I could teach online, because my teachers had been in person. But I've been teaching it for, 7 or 8 years now. And I can assure you it absolutely works teaching it online. So I have students from all around the world. And it is just a magical transformation. And I don't use those words lightly, to see people coming. They come to me because they want to understand their horse. They want a better relationship. And, they're thinking, well, I'll lunge the horse more, or I have to, just push through my fear and do this or that. But it's not that at all. The course is very much focused on learning to study ourselves, learning to find what's triggering us, what's getting in the way of having a peaceful, harmonious relationship. And then very quickly, for the most part, people wake up to, oh, wow, it's not like they solved their problems. They realized there wasn't a problem in the first place. So to really understand on a deep level that, oh, I already have my dream horse. It's not that I need the horse to behave differently. I need to perceive what's going on differently. And once I can come to that spot where there's harmony within me, within this moment, I realize the horse is fine. There's no problem. So it's the easiest thing in some respect, because you don't have to fix a problem. You don't have to go out and get the right horse. You don't have to spend all this time trying to train your horse so he'll be more respectful. It's just finding that spot within our own moments, within our own daily life, where that perfection is already there. That's what we're finding over and over again. You know, horses are the catalyst. They're the ones that get us to realize that we need something. And then through the course, it gives you the actual tools, the actual exercises, the actual steps to take to get from this side where, oh, I don't know what to do, this is dangerous, this is scary, this is frustrating, to, wow, this is amazing. I can't believe that my horse is actually communicating these things to me. Is that helpful?
I gather too that it helps one to be more introspective and more self-aware, to be more present, to maybe recognize when we're sort of floating around out there and we're not in the body and that.
Yeah, and it's not theoretical stuff at all. It's more like, okay, try this exercise, this simple exercise. You can do it all day long, and then tell me what happens.
Right.
And through going through a whole bunch of different exercises, we can create a tailor-made program for each person of exercises that really wake them up moment to moment to moment to the magnificence of life, the magnificence of our relationships, is getting ourselves out of our programming, out of our own way, to really see what a gift this life is, this breath is, this moment is. And in that, you know, people come because they're having trouble with their horses, but then their relationship with their children changes, their relationship with their spouse changes, their relationship with their dog changes. All of a sudden, everything just starts coming into alignment because they're seeing for themselves what's in the way. It's not what I tell them they need to do. It's just a series of simple experiments that really should be what we're being taught in school, but it's not. You know, we're taught to solve the problems rather than to step out of the recognition that there's a problem in the first place. So, you know, this is my attempt to, you know, I love my quote that world peace is a lot of people with inner peace. You know, there's no such thing as world peace. It's, do you have peace? Do you have peace in your day? Do you have peace in your family? Do you have peace in your community? And the more people that can find that peace on a moment-to-moment basis, the quicker we're going to have world peace.
That's beautiful. Now, you also have another course called Renaturing Humans and Horses. Would you like to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, that one is similar to compassionate communication with horses, but there's more exercises to do directly with the horses. So this is really for the person who, you know, wants a better relationship with a horse, but really wants something that they can do there out in the pasture with the horse. Whereas compassionate communication with horses, you can do it without doing anything with the horse. But renaturing horses and humans, you do have to have a horse. You could probably do it with a dog, but it's specifically geared towards the specific challenges with horses. So that's one, if you have a horse in your life and you want to spend time out in the pasture doing specific exercises, it's all unmounted. There's no riding. There's no forcing the horse to do anything. It's all working with an autonomous relationship, respecting the boundaries, respecting the horse's body, and the horse respecting our own. I find that it's a big trigger word. I want the horse to respect me. Well, sure. Do you respect the horse? And that starts with respecting our boundaries, respecting our no. So renaturing horses and humans is a way to get back to our essential nature while maintaining an autonomous relationship.
Can you speak to that? Where did the term autonomous horsemanship come from?
I needed a term. I needed a way to have something that would stand up right next to natural horsemanship and Pirelli horsemanship and all these different types of horsemanship. But the irony is it's the complete opposite of all of those, because an autonomous relationship is one where you truly respect each other's boundaries, truly respect each other's bodies. And there's no other form of horsemanship where you're going to question, oh, should I put a halter on this horse? Oh, am I going to lock a horse in a stall so that I can trim his feet? All of these things that we take for granted that we think we should be able to do to horses really comes under scrutiny if you want an autonomous relationship. So ironically, autonomous horsemanship is not training. It's not manipulating. It's getting to know the horse as the horse is, and the horse getting to know you as you are, and as that higher being we all humans have the potential to be when we don't just overstep others' boundaries. It's swimming upstream right now in the traditional horse world, but I'm hoping that, and I'm seeing it being used more and more, which is really exciting. So when you think of autonomy means that the being has their right to govern themselves, their right to say no. And, I think it's much more human of us to honor that right with the horses. Now, that isn't to say we neglect the horses. That isn't to say we just take a horse and turn him out in the wild, because that would not be humane either. Most of the horses we work with are born and bred in captivity and are used to a certain level of human care, and, will have to live within fences. So sure, if the horse needs hoof care or vet care or dental care, we work with that. And there are times where we will take away the autonomy of the horse if we truly, truly believe it's in their best interest. But that's where it's great that we have a community to discuss this. And that's the foundation of the Many Paths to the Heart community. And that's really exciting to bring together this group of people who have been out there, but we really haven't had this place to gather together and say, hey, we're ready for something different. We're ready to really explore autonomy with ourselves, with our horses, with our dogs, with our cats, with our human family. So I love that the term is catching on, and I think it's needed to just stand right up there with all the other types of horsemanship and give people a real alternative.
Well, I will share that I am a member of the Many Paths to the Heart community. Very proud to be that. So on your website, people can find your DVD, The Path of the Horse. They can find your book by the same name. They can find a second book that you contributed to with many other amazing horsewomen. Your 2 programs, Compassionate Communication with Horses and Renaturing Humans and Horses. They can find links to the Many Paths to the Heart community, which focuses on, as you so brilliantly and eloquently described, autonomous horsemanship. What else would you like people to know about you? What is a takeaway for you? And remember that this audience is not just horse-centric, it's animal consciousness, human consciousness. What would you like to offer in that broader regard?
I think the most important thing that people can do to help themselves, to help the world, is to find our own inner peace. So whether it comes through wanting a better relationship with the animals, or, you've just had so many tragedies, you can't handle one more, you got to find a place that will lead you to your own inner peace. And until you find that, it's just going to be a string of trials and tribulations. And, life has a way of bringing you similar lessons over and over again. Maybe you can't have a good intimate relationship, or maybe, you keep having dogs with separation anxiety, or maybe you just keep getting horses that don't like to perform. All of those can be wake-up calls to bring us back to what the most important thing is, which is our own inner connection to ourselves, to our own peace, to our own harmony. And if you haven't found a way to find that on a moment-to-moment basis, throw away everything else. Go in search of that. That is the foundation. And once you find that, everything else just comes into alignment. So that's something I have made resonates with you. Please ask for more. I'm happy to get on a call with anybody who's looking for more clues. Or if you have another teacher that you found that really helps you get focused and get centered and feel good about the day, the moment, do that. Don't burden our animals. Don't burden your loved ones with trying to make them into something they're not. We need to find that peace with ourselves first. And there's a lot of different ways to find it. And I have my ways that have worked for me. And I certainly don't have a corner on the market to this, but I will say for sure that that's the secret, is to find a way to find your own inner peace.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being willing to have this conversation with me. And I know, because I talk to people all day long, that all roads lead home, right? There are many paths to the heart. But I can tell you, hearing stories from people all across the world, often these journeys can be very difficult. We might not be surrounded with a family that is supportive, or an equine or canine community that is supportive of these types of concepts. And it is very helpful to have a community, and you are creating that community. And you have done the hard work, the difficult work of breaking away from the crowd, forging your own path. And of course, you've had mentors and people that you respect, and worked with many different types of trainers and horsemanship styles on your journey. But what you are doing is so critical to help people not feel alone, to help people in the inner tugging at their heartstrings, the nudging in directions away from what everyone is doing. And that can be very difficult. And I speak from personal experience when I say that. It can be very, very difficult to stand up. It's not always fun, and it's not always easy. But you are making it easier for people to find a different way, not saying better, just a different way of thinking about this, providing a community where people can talk about their experiences. And I'm very grateful that you are doing this. And again, I'm just thrilled that you are willing to come on and have this conversation. If you would like to come back again and share your experiences or personal stories of triumph or overcoming the odds, or relationship, horse and human stories, I would love to have you back anytime you have an interest. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you're doing. You have a beautiful heart, and it shows. And I wish you all the success in the world.
Thank you so much. I can tell you're speaking straight from your heart.
Absolutely. I hope everybody has found something helpful, something useful, something that touches your heart, something that encourages your curiosity to go out and maybe buy Stormy's book, or find another book, whether your passion is dogs or horses or cats or birds. Our job here on this podcast is to provide people a platform to share stories, to generate a sense of community, to validate what you have known since you were a child, to inspire people to heal themselves, to find another language, as it were, and that be an internal language or an external language, whatever that looks like for you. We wish you all the best on your journey, and we hope to see you back here again on Interspecies Evolution. The information provided in this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional, medical, psychiatric, or veterinary advice. Our conversations are based on our life's experiences. We intend this podcast to be complimentary and supportive. It is not intended to be a substitute for traditional medical, psychiatric, or veterinary care. If you need a doctor, a psychiatrist, or a veterinarian, please contact one immediately.